There is a moment, usually sometime in your late 20s or early 30s, when a quiet realization begins to form. You have done everything right. You studied hard, got the degree, landed the job, showed up every day, proved yourself reliable, competent, professional. You have been promoted once, maybe twice. Your salary has increased. Your title has improved. By every conventional measure, you are succeeding. You are building a career. 8. You are doing what you were told to do, and yet there is a gap between where you are and where you thought you would be by now. Not a dramatic gap, not a crisis, just a persistent sense that the math is not working out the way it was supposed to. You earn more than you did 5 years ago, but you do not feel more wealthy. You have more responsibilities, but you do not have more freedom. You have climbed the ladder, but the view from this rung looks suspiciously similar to the view from the last one. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a question begins to form that you almost do not want to ask, because asking it might unravel everything. Is this actually going anywhere? The answer, for most people, is no. Not because they are doing anything wrong, not because they lack talent or discipline or ambition, but because the system they are operating within was never designed to make them wealthy. It was designed to make them useful. And usefulness, reliably compensated, is not the same thing as wealth. It is not even close. This video is about the illusion at the heart of the traditional employment model. The illusion that showing up, working hard and collecting a paycheck will eventually lead to financial freedom. The illusion that a good salary is the same as a good financial outcome. The illusion that the path you're on, if followed long enough and faithfully enough, will deliver you to the destination you were promised. Because that illusion is costing you more than you realize. And by the time most people see through it, decades have passed and options have narrowed, and the life they might have built has been traded for the life they were given. Let me start with the mathematics, because the mathematics are where the illusion first begins to crack. You have a salary. Let us say it is a good salary, the kind of salary you worked hard to achieve, the kind that puts you in the upper portion of earners. Maybe you make $70,000, maybe $100,000, maybe more. And every 2 weeks that number arrives in your bank account steady and predictable, proof that the system is working, that your efforts are being rewarded, that you are doing okay. But here is what nobody tells you about that number. It is shrinking. Not visibly, not on your pay stub, but in what it can actually purchase. Since 2020, inflation has eroded purchasing power at rates not seen in decades. The official numbers suggest somewhere between 15 and 25%, depending on how you measure and what you buy. The practical experience for most people is even worse. Groceries cost more, rent costs more. Healthcare, insurance, childcare, all of it has climbed faster than the official statistics suggest. And if your salary has not increased by at least that same percentage, you have taken a pay cut, not a nominal pay cut, a real one. Your employer is paying you the same number of dollars, but those dollars buy fewer things. You're working just as hard, but you are poorer. This is the mathematics of silent decay, and it affects everyone who earns a wage. Every year that your salary stays flat or grows only modestly, you fall further behind. Not behind your peers necessarily, though that too. Behind yourself, behind the purchasing power you had last year and the year before, behind the trajectory you thought you were on. The illusion of stability, the comfort of seeing the same number or a slightly larger number on your paycheck, obscures a slow-motion financial collapse happening beneath the surface. And here is what makes this particularly cruel. The system is designed to hide it from you. Your employer does not send you a memo explaining that your real compensation has declined. There is no line item on your pay stub showing the inflation adjustment you did not receive. You feel the squeeze at the grocery store, at the gas pump when the rent increases, but the cause is diffuse, invisible, easy to attribute to general economic conditions rather than to the specific failure of your compensation to keep pace. You blame the economy. You should be blaming the structure of your employment. But inflation is only the first layer of the illusion. There's another mathematical reality that most employees never fully grasp, and it has to do with how wages actually grow over a career. The conventional wisdom says that loyalty pays. Stay with a company, prove your value, climb the ladder, and you will be rewarded with raises and promotions that reflect your increasing worth. This story is comforting. It is also false. The data on wage growth tells a different story entirely. Employees who stay at the same company see average annual raises of somewhere between 3 and 4%. Employees who switch jobs see increases of 10 to 20% or more. Over a 5-year period, the job switcher will have increased their income by 50% or more, while the loyal employee has barely kept pace with inflation. Over a 20-year career, the compounding effect is staggering. The person who strategically moved every 2 to 3 years, always negotiating from a position of external opportunity rather than internal captivity, ends up earning hundreds of thousands of dollars more than the person who stayed put and trusted the system. This is not speculation. This is what the Bureau of Labor Statistics and countless compensation studies consistently show, and yet most people continue to behave as if loyalty were a virtue that the market rewards. They continue to believe that their employer will eventually recognize their worth and compensate them accordingly. They continue to wait for the raise that never comes, or that comes but never matches what they could have gotten elsewhere. Why does this happen? Why do companies systematically underpay their existing employees relative to what they would pay to attract new ones? The answer is uncomfortable, but simple. Because they can. An existing employee has already demonstrated their willingness to work for their current salary. They have already integrated into the organization, built relationships, developed routines. The switching costs are high, not for the employer but for the employee. And employers know this. They know that most people will not leave over a disappointing raise. They know that the fear of the unknown, the hassle of job searching, the comfort of familiarity, will keep most employees in place even when they are being underpaid relative to the market. The result is a systematic wealth transfer from loyal employees to disloyal ones. The people who play the game correctly, who treat job switching as a compensation strategy rather than a failure of commitment, extract the value that loyal employees leave on the table. And the loyal employees, the ones who did everything right, who showed up every day, who believed that their dedication would be rewarded, end up subsidizing their more strategic peers. This is not an argument that you should be ruthlessly mercenary, changing jobs every year without regard for relationships or professional development. There are genuine costs to constant switching, and there are situations where staying makes sense. But the default assumption that loyalty leads to reward needs to be challenged. For most people, in most situations, strategic disloyalty is the correct financial move. The ladder you are climbing at your current company may be leaning against the wrong wall entirely, and every year you spend climbing it, you are falling further behind the people who had the clarity to recognize this and the courage to act on it. But here is where the illusion becomes truly pernicious, where it transitions from mathematical disadvantage to psychological trap. Because the people who do succeed within the traditional employment model, the ones who climb high enough to earn 6 figures or more, often find themselves in an even worse position than those who stayed at lower levels. They have walked into what might be called the prestige trap, and the bars of this cage are made of comfort and status rather than poverty. The prestige trap works like this. As your income rises, your lifestyle rises with it. This is not a failure of character. It is human nature, reinforced by social pressure, by marketing, by the expectations of peers and family, by the simple psychological need to feel that your success is real and visible. You get the raise, and you upgrade the apartment. You get the bonus, and you upgrade the car. You reach the 6-figure threshold, and suddenly you are spending like someone who earns 6 figures, which means you are saving approximately what you saved when you earned 50,000, which is to say approximately nothing. But it is worse than just failing to save, because now you have obligations. Now you have the lease on the expensive apartment, the payment on the expensive car, the private school tuition, the membership fees, the wardrobe that signals your position, the dinners and vacations that maintain your relationships with people at your level. All of these things felt like rewards when you acquired them. They have become chains. You cannot downgrade without social humiliation. You cannot quit without financial catastrophe. You cannot take a risk because the cost of failure is now the loss of everything you have built. This is what people mean when they talk about golden handcuffs. The income that was supposed to provide freedom has instead created dependency. You are not working because you want to. You're working because you have to. Because your lifestyle requires it. Because the gap between what you earn and what you need has somehow remained zero despite your income tripling. You have achieved success by every external measure, and you have never been more trapped. The cruelest irony is that the people in this position often cannot see it. They look at their salary and feel wealthy. They look at their possessions and feel successful. They look at their title and feel important. But wealth is not salary. Wealth is what remains after expenses. And if nothing remains, if every dollar is committed before it arrives, then you are not wealthy. You are well compensated. These are completely different things. The person earning $40,000 who saves $10,000 is building more wealth than the person earning $200,000 who saves nothing. The math does not care about your title or your lifestyle or your self-image. The math only cares about what you keep. And this is where we need to fundamentally reconsider what employment actually is and what it can actually provide. Because the traditional framing, the one you were taught, suggests that you must choose between security and freedom. You can have the stable paycheck of traditional employment, or you can have the upside potential of entrepreneurship, but you cannot have both. This framing is false, and it keeps millions of people trapped in situations they hate because they believe the alternative is unacceptable risk. Here is a different way to think about it. Your 9-to-5 job is not your career. It is not your identity. It is not your path to wealth. Your 9-to-5 job is your first investor. It is the steady, reliable funding source that allows you to take risks you could not otherwise afford, to build something on the side while your bills are covered, to experiment and fail and try again without the existential pressure of needing the experiment to work immediately or else. Think about what this reframing means practically. The traditional story says, work your job, try to save money, maybe someday retire. The alternative story says, work your job, use the stability it provides to fund your escape from needing it. The job is not the destination. The job is the launch pad. Every month that you earn a paycheck, you are receiving funding that you can deploy towards something that might eventually replace the paycheck entirely. Not by quitting and hoping, but by building while you're still funded, by using someone else's resources to create resources of your own. The people who escape the 9-to-5 trap often do exactly this. They do not quit their jobs in dramatic fashion to pursue their dreams. They use their jobs to de-risk their dreams. They work during the day and build during the evenings and weekends. They save not for retirement but for runway, for the optionality to reduce their hours, to walk away, to bet on themselves when the bet has a reasonable chance of paying off. They treat their employer not as a partner or a family or a source of meaning, but as what it actually is, a source of capital that can be redirected toward their own independence. This is not disloyalty. This is clarity. Your employer is using your time and talent to build their wealth. There is nothing wrong with using their compensation to build yours. The relationship is transactional, whether or not it feels that way. And pretending otherwise, pretending that your job is something more meaningful than an exchange of a labor for money, keeps you psychologically bound to an arrangement that may not serve your long-term interests. But here is the deepest layer of the illusion, the one that underlies everything else we have discussed, the one that explains why most people will never get rich no matter how much they earn. The confusion between labor income and capital income. Labor income is what you earn by working. It is your salary, your hourly wage, your bonus, your commissions. It is the money that arrives because you showed up and did your job. And for most people, labor income is the only income they have ever known. It is how they were taught to think about money. You work, you get paid. More work, more pay. Better work, better pay. This model is so deeply ingrained that alternatives barely register as possibilities. But labor income has a fatal flaw. It stops when you stop. The moment you cannot work, whether by choice or by circumstance, the income disappears. You can work harder, but there are only so many hours in a day. You can earn more per hour, but there are limits to how much any employer will pay for labor. Labor income is inherently capped by the finite nature of your time and energy, and it is entirely dependent on your continued ability and willingness to trade that time and energy for money. Capital income is different. Capital income is what you earn because of what you own. It is dividends from stocks, interest from bonds, rent from properties, returns from investments. It is money that arrives whether or not you work this week, this month, this year. It is income that does not require your active participation, because it is generated by assets that you have accumulated and that work on your behalf. The distinction between these two types of income is the distinction between working for money and having money work for you. And this distinction is where the path to wealth either opens or remains forever closed, because you will never, ever become wealthy from labor income alone, no matter how high your salary, no matter how impressive your title, no matter how many hours you work or how many years you work them. If all of your income is labor income, if you are converting 100% of your earnings into lifestyle and obligations, you are on a hamster wheel. You might be a very well-paid hamster. You might have a very nice wheel. but you are running in place, and you will continue running in place until you cannot run anymore, at which point you will have nothing. The people who become wealthy do one thing that most people never do. They systematically convert labour income into capital. They take a portion of what they earn from working, and they use it to buy assets that generate their own income. They do this not once, but repeatedly, year after year, decade after decade. And over time, the capital income grows while the labour stays constant. Eventually, often sooner than they expected, the capital income exceeds the labour income. At that point, work becomes optional. At that point, they are wealthy. This is not complicated. It does not require unusual intelligence or special access or lucky breaks. It requires understanding the difference between income and wealth, and it requires acting on that understanding consistently over time. Income is what you earn. Wealth is what you keep and compound. And if you're not converting earning into keeping and compounding, you are not building wealth. You're renting a lifestyle that will disappear the moment your ability or willingness to work disappears. The vehicle for this conversion for most people is simple: low-cost index funds. You take a portion of your paycheck, ideally automated so you never see it, and you invest it in a diversified portfolio that captures the overall growth of the economy. You do this every month regardless of what the market is doing, regardless of the news, regardless of your feelings, and you do not touch it. For decades, you let the compounding work, you let the asset grow, you let the dividend payments reinvest and compound further, and slowly, invisibly, you build an asset base that generates income independent of your labour. This is not exciting, it is not glamorous, it does not make for good social media content, but it is the path that actually leads to wealth for ordinary people with ordinary incomes. The person who earns $100,000 and saves nothing is poorer than the person who earns $50,000 and invests 15. The person who earns $200,000 and spends $220 is going backwards, while the person earning $75 and investing $20 is moving forward. The math does not care about your income, it cares about your investment rate, and your investment rate is the single best predictor of whether you will ever achieve financial freedom. But here is what makes this so difficult. What makes the illusion so persistent and the escape so rare. Everything in the traditional employment model pushes you toward consumption and away from investment. Your salary increases are designed to feel like rewards, and rewards are meant to be enjoyed. Your lifestyle expectations increase with your income because everyone around you is doing the same thing. Your employer offers no training on personal finance, no incentive for building wealth, no education on the distinction between labour income and capital income. They want you to remain dependent on your paycheck, because dependent employees are reliable employees. They have no interest in your financial independence because your financial independence is their labour shortage. And so most people do what most people have always done. They earn and they spend. They earn more and they spend more. They work 40 years and accumulate 40 years of lifestyle but no assets. They arrive at retirement with a social security check that is not enough, and savings that are not enough, and the slow, dawning realization that the promise was a lie. Not a malicious lie, necessarily, but a lie nonetheless. The promise that hard work would be rewarded. The promise that loyalty would pay. The promise that showing up every day and doing your job would lead, eventually, inevitably, to security and comfort and the freedom to stop. The promise was a lie because the system was never designed to deliver on it. The system was designed to extract maximum value from your labour, while providing minimum compensation in return. The system was designed to keep you on the wheel, running, producing, consuming, never accumulating enough to threaten your dependence. The system was designed by people who understood the difference between labour income and capital income, who ensured that you would provide the former while they accumulated the latter. This is not conspiracy. This is just incentives. Your employer's incentive is to pay you as little as possible while retaining your services. The economy's incentive is to encourage consumption, because consumption drives growth. The financial industry's incentive is to keep you confused enough that you need their services but not educated enough that you could do without them. Everyone benefits from your continued participation in a system that extracts more than it provides. Everyone except you. But knowing this, seeing through the illusion, is not the same as escaping it. Plenty of people understand that the game is rigged and continue playing anyway because they do not see an alternative. The alternative requires action, not just understanding. It requires changing behaviour, not just changing beliefs. And so, let me be specific about what escaping actually looks like. First, You must stop measuring success by income and start measuring it by savings rate. Your goal is not to earn more, though earning more helps. Your goal is to capture more of what you earn, to convert a larger percentage of labour income into capital, to widen the gap between what comes in and what goes out. A 50% savings rate will make you wealthy regardless of your income level. A 0% savings rate will keep you poor regardless of how much you earn. The number that matters is not your salary. It is the number that moves from your paycheck to your investment accounts each month. Second, you must automate the conversion. Human willpower is unreliable. You cannot trust yourself to make good decisions every month, especially when those decisions require sacrificing present pleasure for future security. The only reliable strategy is to remove the decision entirely. Set up automatic transfers. Have the money move before you see it. Make investment the default and spending the exception. The people who build wealth are not more disciplined than you. They have better systems. Third, you must reconsider your relationship with your job. It is not a path to wealth. It is a source of funding for wealth-building activities. This reframe is not about working less or caring less. It is about clarity. Your job serves a purpose, and that purpose is to provide the stable income that allows you to take risks elsewhere. The job is the foundation, not the building. What you build on that foundation is up to you. Fourth, you must engage with the labour market strategically. Stop waiting for raises you will not get. Research your market value. Interview even when you're not looking. Maintain relationships with recruiters. Understand that the only leverage you have is the credible threat of leaving, and that threat is only credible if you are actually willing and able to leave. The discomfort of interviewing is a small price to pay for the compensation gains that strategic mobility provides. Fifth, you must resist lifestyle inflation with deliberate, conscious effort. Every raise is an opportunity to widen the gap or to close it. Most people close it. They get the raise and immediately increase their expenses to match. You must do the opposite. You must treat raises as increases to your investment rate, not increases to your lifestyle. This requires actively resisting the expectations of everyone around you who will be upgrading their lifestyles and expecting you to do the same. It requires being willing to look less successful than you are. It requires prioritizing future freedom over present appearance. None of this is easy. All of it is possible. And the alternative, continuing to believe in the illusion, continuing to work and spend and hope that somehow it will work out, is not actually an alternative. It is a slow-motion failure that will become apparent only when it is too late to change course. The 9 to 5 is not evil. It is a tool. Like any tool, it can be used well or used poorly. Used well, it provides stability and funding and the space to build something meaningful. Used poorly, it consumes decades and provides nothing but a lifestyle that disappears the moment the income stops. The difference is not in the job itself. The difference is in how you understand what the job is for. Most people never get rich because they believe in an illusion. The illusion that income equals wealth. The illusion that loyalty equals reward. The illusion that climbing the ladder leads somewhere. The illusion that a good salary is the same as a good outcome. These illusions keep people running on wheels, producing value for others, consuming everything they earn, arriving at the end of their careers with nothing but the bitter realization that the promise was never real. You do not have to be most people. You can see the illusion for what it is. You can recognize that labor income alone will never make you wealthy, that strategic disloyalty often beats loyalty, that lifestyle inflation is the enemy of freedom, that your job is a tool rather than a destination, that the only path to wealth is the systematic conversion of earning into owning. You can act on this recognition today, not someday, not when conditions are perfect, but now, with whatever resources you currently have. The system will not change to accommodate you. The incentives will remain misaligned. Your employer will continue to underpay you relative to the market. Inflation will continue to erode your purchasing power. The pressure to consume will continue from every direction. None of this will change. The only thing that can change is you. Most people will read this or hear this and continue exactly as they were. They will nod, agree, feel momentarily inspired, and then return to the patterns that guarantee they will never escape. This is not judgment. This is statistics. The path is clear, but few walk it because walking requires sustained effort against constant resistance. You're not most people if you choose not to be. The illusion is visible now. The math is clear. The path is open. The only question is whether you will take it or whether you will continue believing in a promise that was never meant to be kept.